Well, we had a very interesting afternoon in the courtroom today. We heard the testimony of Professor Mark Feldstein, a distinguished professor in journalism and a former investigative journalist, an American that has a huge experience in the field. And what he had to say basically is can be summed up in his words when he said what is being described in the indictment against Julian about his interactions with Chelsea Manning as being a conspiracy, as being a crime. He said, then it so happens every investigative journalist is conspiring every day. That is simply journalistic practice. And that is why it's such a serious indictment. This is basically an attempt to criminalize journalism. So we heard an echo of what we've been saying all along for a long time from a distinguished professor. What we have been pointing out is the essence of this case here against Julian Assange. It is an attempt to stifle journalism and make criminals out of everybody who does a decent job and attempts to do his duty as a journalist.
Kristinn, can I just ask, the prosecution seemed to be making leading questions and hypothetical questions, and then objected about the defense using leading questions. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought it was amazing because the prosecution was interrupting constantly when the defense or Julian's lawyers were examining or questioning the witness without any objections by the judge. But when the prosecution went onward and they made quite an outrageous attempt to discredit Professor Feldstein and his objectivity in a rather pathetic fashion, in my opinion. They demanded short answers from him, which I've never heard being demanded by a lawyer in a courtroom in the UK. It sounds like something from an American legal drama where the lawyers are acting against witnesses as hostile witnesses. Lewis from the prosecution demanded to know if Feldstein had any expertise in law, and he had to admit, of course, no, he's an expert on journalism. But then he went ahead to question Feldstein on elements of the law, where the witness had to basically say, I am not a lawyer, I'm not an expert on matters of the Justice Department, on how grand juries operate, etc. You have to ask a lawyer for that. But this went on and on without any interruption by the judge, where everybody in the courtroom was just shaking their head. Why are you trying to interrogate a professor of journalism about legal matters in the US? So it surprised me that the judge would not interrupt that outrageous practice.
Kristinn, you saw Julian Assange today in court in the docks. What are your impressions about Julian, knowing him so well?
He is obviously tired. He is obviously in distress in a way to be here in the courtroom, and knowing that his fate and his future will be decided in the next few weeks. Although there, of course, will be possibilities to appeal and keep the fight going. So that's what I can say. He is not in a good place, I know that. And no wonder if you look at the treatment he has had and the fact that he hasn't seen his lawyers for 6 months, his family and his children only a few days ago for the first time in half a year. And even under circumstances which are inhumane, where he cannot cuddle his children because of the COVID. So you can just imagine what kind of a situation that is for a father that has had such limited access and limited opportunity to enjoy being with his children.
Public opinion around the world seems to be shifting. People seem to be realizing that this is not a due process. Do you share this opinion? And is this the reason why the USA tried a superseding indictment?
I think you are correct in your assessment in the question, basically. It was quite obvious after the February episode of which is now basically being destroyed because they changed the narrative and threw in a new document just a few weeks ago, which is outrageous and an insult to the UK justice system. That the Americans saw that this was not going anywhere. I mean, they could not credibly continue on the basis of the old indictment, so they scrambled together these new elements with totally outrageous allegations of that have basically no connection to the 18 indictments. We're talking about incidents in my home country in Iceland, allegation about obtaining banking data, etc., which is rather outrageous. So I think it's an act of desperation somewhat, but they seem very sure of themselves that they're going to get everything they want out of this court system here. And there's an indication that the judge is willing to bend to the will, if I may say, quite extraordinarily. For the public opinion, yes, we have seen a change of tide. We see, and I feel, and I sense that there is a stronger knowledge of the elements of the case, and thereby, because everybody that looks into the case comes to the conclusion that this is a politically motivated persecution, that goes without saying. So the more people learn, the more you actually inform them about the elements in the case, the stronger the opposition becomes against the extradition, and the stronger the desire among the general public basically to defend journalism as we know it. And that's a positive sign, and let's hope that continues.